Let me tell you something about perfect marriages. They're like glass houses, beautiful to look at but one stone throw away from shattering into a million pieces. And I should know because I was living in one, or at least, that's what everyone thought. My husband, Alex, and I were the golden couple, living in our dream home with 2 cars in the driveway and smiles that never seemed to fade. To the outside world, we had it all. But beneath that gleaming surface, I was suffocating, craving something, anything, that felt real and raw. It all changed at a work conference in Vegas. That's where I met him, Jake, a guy who was the exact opposite of everything my life represented. He was adventurous, spontaneous, and had a wildness in his eyes that I couldn't resist. From the moment we talked, I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help myself. The connection was electric, undeniable. We ended up spending the night talking, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was caught up in the whirlwind of an affair. It felt like a breath of fresh air in my suffocating life, a secret escape that belonged only to me. But secrets have a way of making themselves known, don't they? Alex started to notice little things at first, late nights at work, my phone buzzing more than usual. He didn't say anything, but the air between us grew heavy with unasked questions and unsaid accusations. I could see the suspicion in his eyes, feel it in the way he'd watch me, but he never found any concrete evidence. Or so I thought. The day everything came crashing down started like any other. Alex was scrolling through our shared iPad when he stumbled upon a message I thought I had deleted. A message from Jake that left nothing to the imagination. I watched the color drain from Alex's face as he read it, the silent horror in his eyes turning into a storm. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Accusations flew, harsh words were exchanged, and the perfect image of our marriage shattered right there on our living room floor. Instead of demanding a divorce, Alex did something I never expected. He gave me an ultimatum, a chilling promise that he would make me regret what I had done, but not in the ways I feared. No, he was too clever for that. You'll see, he said with a coldness that made my blood run cold. I'll make sure you never forget the mistake you made. The gravity of my situation didn't fully hit me until later. Alex's words hung over me like a dark cloud, a constant reminder that the storm was far from over. I was trapped in a game of psychological warfare with the man I once promised to spend my life with, and I had no idea how to escape it. My affair, which had started as a thrilling escape, had turned into my biggest nightmare, and I was left wondering if there was any way out of the mess I had made. In a world where I once felt loved and secure, I now tread on a thin ice of paranoia and isolation. My husband's silent war against me had escalated far beyond my wildest fears, morphing my life into a living nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It started subtly, with my credit cards being declined and my invitations to social gatherings suddenly drying up. At first, I told myself it was a misunderstanding, a glitch in our finances, or perhaps I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew. This was his retaliation, his way of tightening the noose around my freedom, making me feel trapped in a life that no longer recognized me as its owner. Then came the disappearances. One morning, my grandmother's ring, the one item I cherished above all else, was gone. Vanished without a trace. Next, it was photos from our honeymoon, disappearing from the walls and albums as if they were mere figments of my imagination. Each loss was a silent scream from my husband, a reminder of the control he wielded over me, stripping away pieces of my identity and history with surgical precision. But nothing prepared me for the day my secret was dragged into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. An anonymous email had circulated among our family and friends, detailing my affair with such accuracy it left no room for doubt or denial. The shame that followed was suffocating, a scarlet letter branded on my chest by the very person who vowed to protect me. My husband's face remained impassive amidst the storm, a perfect portrait of betrayal clothed in feigned ignorance. The legal maneuvers were the next blow, a punch that knocked the wind out of me. He had gone to the courts, not with divorce papers as one might expect, but with a petition to freeze our assets, citing my financial infidelity as cause. My access to our joint accounts, my lifeline, was severed with a stroke of a pen, leaving me financially paralyzed and at his mercy. As if to add insult to injury, my car was vandalized one night. The tires slashed, the paintwork keyed with vicious intent. There was no proof, no evidence to link him to the crime, but the message was clear as day. He was marking his territory, showing me that there was no aspect of my life he couldn't reach, no safe haven left for me. The assault on my personal life was brutal, but the attack on my professional life was the coup de grace. I arrived at work one day to find my emails deleted and my projects sabotaged, my reputation in tatters. The demotion followed shortly after, a public reprimand for mistakes I hadn't made. My career, once a source of pride and independence, had been systematically dismantled, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. In the midst of this chaos, the most personal betrayal came to light. My clothes no longer fit, altered to hang loose on my frame, mocking me. My beauty products, replaced with damaging substitutes that left my skin irritated and my hair dull. It was a direct attack on my self-esteem, a cruel reminder that I was no longer the owner of my body or my self-worth. Sitting alone in the wreckage of my life, I couldn't help but wonder how I had arrived at this juncture. The love that once bound us had been weaponized, turning my husband into an adversary whose capacity for vengeance knew no bounds. Each day brought a new humiliation, a fresh wound, leaving me to navigate a labyrinth of despair with no end in sight. The man I had married, the life we had built together, had become unrecognizable, a twisted reflection of the vows we once exchanged. In his quest for revenge, he had reduced our marriage to a battlefield, and I, a casualty of a war one never chose to fight. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. Just when you think you've hit rock bottom, life hands you a shovel and tells you to keep digging. That's exactly where I found myself, standing in the wreckage of what used to be my life, my heart, and my home. My last hope, the man I thought could be my refuge, had turned his back on me. Jake, my lover, the person I'd turned to in my darkest hour, had been swayed by my husband's manipulations. The look in his eyes was one I'd come to know all too well, pity mixed with fear. He came to me, Jake confessed, his voice barely a whisper. He made it clear, I can't see you anymore. I'm sorry. Just like that, the last thread of hope I clung to was severed. I returned home, or at least tried to. The locks had been changed, my belongings piled outside like garbage, and there he was, my husband, standing at the window, watching the fallout of his revenge with a cold detachment. I tried to reason with him, my voice breaking as I pleaded for a semblance of mercy. Please, let's just end this. I'm sorry, truly sorry, I begged. But his response was as chilling as the winter air. You made your bed, was all he said before disappearing from view. There I was, homeless, heartbroken, and utterly defeated. But as I sifted through the remnants of my life scattered on the lawn, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Sarah, a friend from my past, someone I hadn't seen in years, stood before me with a look of determination. I heard about what's been happening. I think I can help you, she said, extending her hand. It was a lifeline. One I grasped without hesitation, not just because I was desperate, but because her arrival felt like fate intervening. As we sat in a dimly lit coffee shop, Sarah revealed the reason for her sudden reappearance. She had a history with my husband, a piece of his past he'd gone to great lengths to bury. He's not the man you think he is, she warned, her voice heavy with a secret that soon unfolded. Turns out, my husband's vendetta wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control. Something he'd exercised over someone very close to Sarah years ago. Armed with this new knowledge, a plan began to take shape. It was risky, potentially dangerous, but it was a chance to turn the tables, to fight back against the man who had made it his mission to destroy me. With each move, the stakes grew higher, but so did my resolve. Sarah and I worked in the shadows, uncovering evidence, rallying allies, and slowly but surely, we began to see cracks in my husband's armor. The battle between us became a chess game, each of us trying to outmaneuver the other. But with every move he made, I was one step ahead, thanks to Sarah's insight. It was a war of wits, a test of endurance, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was winning. But as anyone who's ever played chess knows, the game isn't over until it's over. My husband, realizing he was losing ground, launched a counteroffensive that was personal and cruel. Yet, despite the escalating attacks, the fear that once paralyzed me began to fade, replaced by fierce determination to reclaim my life and my dignity. This chapter in my life was far from over, but for the first time, I wasn't facing it alone. With Sarah by my side and the truth as my weapon, I was ready to fight back, to challenge the darkness with a light of my own making. The battle ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was no longer the same woman who had watched her life crumble. I was stronger, braver, and, most importantly, I was not alone. The day it all came crashing down wasn't marked by thunderstorms or ominous clouds. It was just a regular Tuesday, sunny with a chance of devastation. I found myself in the eye of the storm, my life's drama unfolding for the world to see, in the last place I ever wanted to be. The center of attention at a local cafe, our private agony on public display. It started with a whisper, a murmur that rippled through the crowded room, gaining momentum until it reached a fever pitch. My husband, the mastermind of my undoing, stood at the opposite end, a cold, hard smile on his face as he began to unravel the tapestry of lies and secrets we had woven together. The audience, our friends, family, and even strangers, hung on every word, their gazes shifting between us, a spectacle they couldn't resist. But the knife that cut the deepest wasn't held by my husband, it was the betrayal of my closest friend, Anna. She stepped forward, her eyes avoiding mine, as she corroborated his version of events, adding fuel to the fire with her own grievances against me. The hurt from her betrayal was a physical pain, a blow that left me reeling and questioning every moment we had shared. How long had she been conspiring with him? How could I have been so blind? The final confrontation was a blur of accusations, pleas, and ultimatums. I stood my ground, demanding my freedom, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. That's when he revealed his trump card, a piece of information so damaging, so utterly destructive, it left me with no choice but to capitulate. The details don't matter now. What does is the outcome. I was defeated, not by the strength of his argument, but by the weight of my own choices. I left the cafe with nothing but the clothes on my back and a soul heavy with loss. My departure from the town was a quiet affair, unnoticed by those who had once been a part of my life. The drive away from everything I had known was a journey through a landscape as barren as my heart, each mile a step further from my past and closer to an uncertain future. Starting over wasn't just about finding a new place to live, it was about rebuilding myself from the ground up. The town I chose was small, unremarkable, a place where nobody knew my name or my story. But the scars of my past were not so easily left behind. They haunted my steps, a constant reminder of the life I had lost and the person I had been. Just when I thought I had reached the limits of my loneliness, fate intervened in the form of a familiar face from a chapter of my life I thought had been closed forever. It was Mike, an old friend from college, someone who had known me before my marriage, before my world had turned upside down. Seeing him was like glimpsing a sliver of sunlight through dark clouds, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there are threads of hope, however fragile. Our encounter was brief, a chance meeting that opened the door to a conversation filled with memories of a simpler time. Mike offered me something I hadn't expected, understanding and a sense of belonging, a reminder that not all was lost. It was a small step, but in the vast desert of my new reality, it was a sign that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path forward, one that might lead me out of the shadows and into the light. The moment of realization hit me like a cold wave, washing over the remnants of my past life with a clarity that was as painful as it was liberating. There I was, sitting in the quiet of a life I hardly recognized, the din of my past actions echoing in the silence. It was in this stillness that I understood the vicious cycle I had been a part of, a cycle of betrayal and revenge that had ensnared not just me but everyone around me. The cost of my actions, once dismissed as the price of seeking what I thought I deserved, now stood before me, a towering debt I could never repay. Acceptance is a bitter pill to swallow, especially when it's laced with the realization of one's own folly. I had danced on the edge of a precipice, blind to the precipitous fall that awaited. But as the dust settled and the adrenaline of my escape waned, I found myself facing a new dawn with a resolve that was born from the ashes of my former life. I vowed to rebuild, not in an attempt to reclaim what was lost, that was a ship that had long since sailed, but to forge something new from the lessons learned in the fire of my undoing. My story, once whispered in the corridors of my existence, became a cautionary tale, a somber melody that played in the background of the lives I had touched. The whispers grew into rumors, and the rumors into a narrative that served as a stark reminder of the price of infidelity and the dark shadow cast by revenge. It was a legacy I had never intended to leave, a mark on the world that was both a warning and a testament to the complexity of human emotions and the consequences of our choices. Years later, the ripples of my actions continued to make themselves known, manifesting in ways I could never have anticipated. Lives that had once intersected with mine, however briefly, were altered in courses subtle and profound, a butterfly effect born from the chaos of my making. It was a sobering reminder of the interconnectedness of our lives, of how deeply we can impact one another without ever realizing the full extent of our influence. Then came the final message from my husband, a cryptic note that arrived out of the blue, its contents a puzzle that left me pondering the depths of his intentions and the extent of his planning. Had his actions been a carefully orchestrated symphony, each note played with precision to lead to this moment? Or was it a final acknowledgement of the battle we had waged, a battle in which there were no winners, only survivors? The ambiguity of his words left me in a limbo of interpretation, a place where answers were as elusive as the shadows at dusk. In the quiet reflection that followed, I came face to face with the architect of my downfall, myself. My quest for excitement, for something more than the life I had been given, had led me down a path of destruction. It was a hard truth to accept, the acknowledgement that the chaos of my life was not merely a series of unfortunate events but the result of choices I had made, each step leading me further away from the person I thought I was. And so, I live in anonymity now, a shadow among shadows, my story a mere footnote in the lives of those who moved on. From my secluded vantage point, I hear of my husband's continued success, a reminder that life goes on, with or without us. In this solitude, I've found a peace of sorts, a quiet acceptance of the impermanence of all things and the understanding that we are but actors on a stage, playing our parts until the curtain falls. In the quiet aftermath of a life once lived in the fast lane, I found myself at a crossroads, staring down the path of redemption with a heart heavy with regret. It was in this solitude, this exile from the life I once knew, that I realized my story could serve as a beacon, a warning to others standing on the precipice of choices that could shatter their worlds as mine had been shattered. So, I started to write, pouring my heart and my mistakes onto the page with a raw honesty that left me exposed but hopeful that my tale could spare even one soul from the agony of betrayal and the bitter taste of revenge. As the words flowed, a purpose began to crystallize, a mission to guide others through the murky waters of temptation and the consequences that follow. It was a purpose born from pain, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my own making, and it gave me a reason to face each day with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I dedicated my life to helping others navigate the complexities of relationships, to recognize the signs of discontent, and to find constructive ways to address them before they spiraled into destruction. Then, as fate would have it, a turning point arrived, wrapped in an opportunity that forced me to confront the demons of my past head-on. An invitation to speak at a conference, to share my story with a room full of strangers, each grappling with their own battles. It was a chance at closure, but the thought of standing before them, laying bare my failures and my sins, was a daunting prospect that threatened the fragile peace I had built. The choice before me was clear yet complicated. To step into the light and expose the scars of my past in the hope of healing others, or to remain in the shadows, safe but stagnant. After much soul-searching, I chose the former, driven by a newfound conviction that my experiences, as harrowing as they were, could pave the way for healing, understanding, and perhaps even prevention for others. The conference was a crucible, a trial by fire that tested every ounce of my resolve. I stood before them, my voice steady but my hands trembling, and shared the journey of my downfall and the hard-earned lessons that came with it. The most poignant of these was forgiveness, especially the act of forgiving oneself. It was a lesson that had taken me years to learn, a realization that the path forward was paved with self-compassion and the understanding that we are all, at our core, fallible beings capable of change. In the aftermath of my confession, the reckoning came. Faces from my past, those I had hurt and those who had witnessed my fall, approached me with words of understanding, of hurt, and of tentative forgiveness. It was a moment of raw emotion, a blend of pain and healing that left me both drained and inexplicably whole. Among them was an offer, unexpected and laden with potential, a chance to collaborate on a project aimed at relationship healing, to use my story and my insights to help couples on the brink of collapse. It was an opportunity that came with its own set of challenges and conditions, a path that would once again place me in the public eye, under scrutiny and judgment. But it was also a chance to make a tangible difference, to turn the tide of my legacy from one of caution to one of hope. Accepting the offer was a leap of faith, A step onto a road less traveled that promised not redemption but the possibility of contribution, of making amends through action and intent. It was a decision that cemented my journey from the depths of despair to the precipice of a new beginning, one where the lessons of the past shaped the promise of the future. In a life punctuated by chaos, making the decision to embrace my future was like stepping into a storm, uncertain if I'd find shelter or be swept away. This choice wasn't made lightly. It came from a place of desperation, a realization that the only way out of the darkness was to walk through it, one step at a time. My journey towards redemption began not with fanfare, but with a quiet resolve, a whisper in the heart that spoke of the long road ahead. The path was anything but straight. It wound through landscapes of doubt and fear, each turn revealing challenges I hadn't anticipated. Yet, amidst these trials, there were moments of unexpected grace, glimpses of light in the deepest shadows, offering solace and strength. It was during these times that I found support in the most unexpected places. Strangers became confidants, their own stories of struggle and triumph weaving into the tapestry of my journey, reminding me that none of us walk this path alone. Together, we built a new community, a collective of souls bound by the shared experience of rising from the ashes of our pasts. But just as hope began to take root, a setback loomed large on the horizon. A challenge that threatened to undo all the progress I had made, forcing me to confront the very demons I sought to escape. It was a test of everything I had learned, a moment that demanded reflection and a reevaluation of my strategies and motivations. The temptation to retreat, to fall back into old patterns, was a siren call that I fought with every fiber of my being. The breakthrough, when it came, was as unexpected as it was profound. In facing my challenges head-on, I discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed. This milestone was more than just an achievement. It was a validation of my journey, a sign that redemption was not just a distant dream but a reality within my grasp. It was a reminder that the darkest nights often lead to the brightest dawns. Amidst this journey of self-discovery, a revelation came to light, shedding new understanding on the actions of my husband. It was a truth that cut deep, unraveling the narrative I had clung to and offering a new perspective on our shared history. This clarity was a double-edged sword, providing liberation from my past yet exposing the raw wounds that had yet to heal fully. In a twist of fate that bordered on poetic justice, I learned that my husband's downfall was not my doing but the result of actions taken by someone we both had underestimated. This unexpected act of revenge, while not my wish, served as a stark reminder of the intricate web of consequences spun from our choices. It was a moment that underscored the unpredictable nature of vengeance and the ways in which it can return to haunt us all. The dramatic conclusion of my story was not written in the stars but in the scars that marked my soul, a testament to the destructive power of vengeance and the price of seeking retribution over understanding. As I stood amidst the ruins of what was and what could have been, I faced an irrevocable loss, a chasm in my life that could never be filled. Yet, even in this moment of profound sorrow, there was a sense of release. The chains that had bound me to my past were broken, not by the actions of others, but by my own journey through the darkness. In the end, I was left to forge a path in a world irrevocably altered by my choices, a world where the shadows of yesterday lingered but no longer defined my way forward. This chapter, like those that came before, was a mosaic of pain and beauty, of loss and discovery. It was a reminder that the journey of redemption is not a destination but a continual process of becoming, of shedding the weight of our past to embrace the limitless potential of our